Most women are taught to be likable, polished, predictable. They learn how to smile at the right moment, nod with approval, soften their voices, and bend their truths to avoid discomfort. But some women, some do not bow to that training. Some walk into a room not to please, but to possess, not to perform, but to provoke. And it is this, her mystery, her refusal to be known on demand, that ignites something ancient in a man's psyche. A pull so primal it bypasses logic and crashes into the depths of his unconscious, awakening parts of him he never knew he buried. This is not about seduction in the shallow sense. It's not the curve of her body or the flick of her gaze that holds him captive. It is her absence of need, her stillness, her emotional sovereignty. She is not emotionally chaotic, nor is she entirely available. She is layered, like a dream half-remembered, compelling, ungraspable, unforgettable. And what he feels, though he may not admit it, is disarmed. His masculine mind, wired to solve and conquer, suddenly meets an equation that resists solution. In her silence, his ego searches for confirmation, for control, but receives neither. In her presence, his shadows stir. His need to be admired, his hunger to be chosen, his terror of being invisible. And rather than flatter those wounds, she reflects them back like a mirror polished by myth. This woman is not aloof, she is attuned, but not in the way he expects. She does not need his story to feel whole. She does not orbit his mood. Her world remains intact regardless of whether he enters it or not. That is the first thing that both confuses and magnetizes him. She is not the echo of his desires. She is the sound of her own becoming. A woman who has met her darkness and did not flinch. A woman who no longer trades her authenticity for approval. Carl Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine image within the male psyche. It is this inner feminine that a man projects onto women, often unknowingly. But when she does not conform to that projection, when she deviates from the script he's internalized, something extraordinary happens. He begins to see, not her, but himself. And for a man who has spent his life chasing illusions, that can be terrifying and exhilarating. You might think that emotional availability is the key to closeness, but too often what we call availability is actually emotional exposure without discernment. This woman, this mysterious, emotionally self-contained woman, offers something different, not openness, but depth, not oversharing, but presence, not explanations, but energetic truth. And it is her discernment, not her disclosure, that earns a man's respect. He may not understand her, but he cannot forget her. There is a part of every man that aches to be initiated into meaning, into soul, into something greater than transactional affection. He does not want another performance. He wants to feel, to be cracked open by something real. And she, by refusing to entertain, to flatter, to soften herself into his comfort, becomes that initiation. She is the chaos he longs to understand and the order he cannot impose. And still he returns, again and again. Not because she gives him what he wants, but because she awakens what he needs. Not praise, not obedience, but presence. A presence so rooted, so sovereign, that it forces him to confront the emptiness of his conquests. With her, the game ends. There is no chasing, no pleasing, no proving. There is only presence or absence. And he feels both like fire on the skin. When she speaks, it is not to persuade, it is to reveal. When she's silent, it is not to punish, it is to anchor. And when she loves, it is not from need, but from overflow. She has become what so many fear, a woman who no longer requires validation to feel valuable. A woman who does not cling to potential, who does not beg for closure, who does not confuse availability with self-worth. And it is this woman, the one who remains centered even in longing, who walks away when unseen, who does not explain her soul, that makes men beg for more. Not because she manipulates, not because she withholds, but because she lives as her whole self, not an audition. She is not a woman you win. She is a mirror, a mystery, a sacred disruption. And he will ache to solve her, not realizing she was never meant to be solved. Men often confuse possession with presence. They believe that if they can have a woman, claim her, label her, then they understand her. But what this woman embodies, what draws him into obsession, is something beyond possession. She cannot be owned because she does not even own herself in the conventional sense. She belongs to something deeper, the current of truth that flows beneath every mask, every identity, every expectation. She has shed the need to be seen in exchange for the power of being real. Her emotional mystery is not a tactic. It is not a performance rehearsed for male attention. It is the inevitable consequence of a woman who has traveled to the underworld of her own psyche and returned with her soul intact. She knows her wounds. She knows the places she once contorted herself for love. But now she no longer seeks to be loved by the world. She seeks to love herself through the world. And that difference is seismic. You see, a man who stands in the shallows of himself is easily satisfied by admiration. He craves applause, validation, submission. But when faced with a woman who sees past his titles, past his charm, past his projections, he is faced with the terrifying truth: he must become real to meet her. No mask will do. No performance will be enough. He cannot seduce her with success, nor win her with cleverness. She does not hunger for surface. She listens for the soul. And when he encounters her gaze, not the one she shows to the world, but the gaze she reserves for truth, it's as if something inside him shatters, not because she hurt him, but because she saw him. The parts he hides, the insecurities he tucks beneath confidence, the fear of not being enough. She names none of it. She doesn't need to. Her silence is its own mirror. A woman like this does not speak to be heard. She speaks when the words rise from alignment, not anxiety. She does not fill the silence with noise or seek refuge in over-explaining. Her restraint is not withdrawal, it is power. Every movement, every glance, every pause is laced with the kind of presence that makes a man realize how starved he's been for meaning, for connection not forged in codependency, but in consciousness. The ancient mystics spoke of Sophia, the sacred feminine wisdom. She is not loud, she is not obvious, she is not always sweet, but she is true. And in this woman, Sophia lives, not in the way she walks or dresses or speaks, but in the way she holds herself, in the way she chooses solitude over shallow companionship, in the way she dares to feel deeply without drowning in her feelings. And this mystery, this refusal to flatten herself into digestible versions, pulls a man into his own inner terrain. She becomes a gateway, not to her body, but to his psyche. And this is what he cannot explain. Why her? Why does she linger in his mind, in his breath, in his dreams? Why does he return to the echo of her voice, the memory of her gaze, the stillness she left in his presence? Because she did not feed his ego, she fed his hunger for depth. And once a man has tasted that, true emotional depth wrapped in mystery, wrapped in dignity, he cannot go back to easy. He cannot return to predictable. He cannot unsee her. Even if he loses her, she lives on in the part of him she awakened. Her mystery is not confusion. It is clarity without disclosure. She does not need to be decoded because she is not hiding. She simply lives at a depth most never reach. And when a man meets her, he either rises or runs, because she will not descend to be understood. She will not dim her fire to soothe his fears. She will not trade her mystery for security. She is not afraid of being alone. She is afraid of being untrue. And that, above all, is why he aches for her. Not because she made him feel safe, but because she made him feel, period. Because she stirred his soul from slumber. Because her mystery was not emptiness, it was invitation to become more than what he was. To meet her not in the shallows, but in the depth of becoming. And the deeper he dares to go, the closer he gets, not to her, but to himself. There is something alchemical about a woman who has made peace with her shadow. She doesn't shrink from her rage, her grief, her hunger, her sensuality. She doesn't amputate the parts of herself that make others uncomfortable. Instead, she invites them in. She has become a container for all of it, the sacred and the savage, the holy and the human. And this integration gives her a kind of glow, not the light of innocence, but the fire of having survived herself. To the unawakened man, she is chaos. To the awakened one, she is revelation. Because only a man willing to confront his own disowned parts can withstand her depth. She will not soothe his ego or reflect back a tame version of femininity. She will bring to the surface all that he has tried to bury, his fear of inadequacy, his avoidance of intimacy, his illusions of control. She is not a storm to be weathered, but a mirror to be honored. And the man who dares to stay, who resists the urge to fix or flee, finds something rare: initiation. This is the sacred function of the feminine mystery. It calls forth the masculine soul. It does not bend to make him comfortable. It breaks him open, not with cruelty, but with truth. And in that rupture, something ancient stirs. The archetype of the warrior meets the oracle, The protector meets the priestess. The hunter meets the myth. He realizes he has not been chasing her. He's been chasing the version of himself that can stand with her. But she is not waiting. She does not mold herself to his timeline. Her life moves with the rhythm of the seasons, not the rush of urgency. She knows that love cannot be forced, that intimacy cannot be performed, and so she surrenders to the sacred intelligence of timing. She walks her path whether he joins or not, and this, more than anything, undoes him. Her detachment is not indifference, it is devotion to herself, to truth, to the life she refuses to abandon for the illusion of partnership. This kind of woman cannot be captured in a profile or reduced to a role. She is not girlfriend, wife, muse. She is wild psyche in motion. She is mythic in nature, belonging more to the realm of symbols and dreams than to ordinary routines. And yet she washes dishes. She goes to work. She pays her bills. She laughs. She cries. She is fully human, but never only human. There is something else moving through her, and men feel it. Even if they don't understand it, they sense it. That's why he can't shake her. Even long after she's gone, she echoes through his body, because she didn't just touch his skin. She touched his story. She disrupted the narrative he was using to sleepwalk through his life. And in doing so, she woke him. Not with lectures, not with demands, but with the quiet, holy defiance of being fully herself. You see, the modern world rewards performance. It praises the palatable. It applauds the pleasing. But the soul doesn't want a performance. It wants presence. It wants to be met, not managed. And this woman, by refusing to perform her worth, becomes a vessel for soul. She is not loud about it. She does not broadcast her depth, but it's there in the way she breathes, in the way she listens, in the way she chooses silence over spectacle. She is not seeking applause. She is seeking alignment. And when a man senses that, when he realizes she is not here to want him but to witness him, he is brought face to face with his own emptiness, not as punishment, but as invitation to rise, to soften, to feel. Most relationships are built on unconscious transactions. I'll reflect back what you want to see if you reflect me in return. But this woman, she does not trade illusions. She offers truth, not as a weapon, but as a balm, not as a demand, but as a gift. And in her presence, a man must choose comfort or transformation, because he cannot have both. Her emotional mystery is not a wall. It is a doorway. But only those willing to leave behind the false self can walk through. She is not impressed by potential. She is drawn only to presence. And that is why so many men want her, but so few can meet her. Because she is not for the man who needs to be needed. She is for the man who is ready to be seen. He may try to forget her. He may distract himself with other women, simpler conversations, easier affection, but nothing tastes the same. Because once he has been in the presence of a woman who embodies her full emotional truth, without apology, without performance, every superficial connection feels like famine. He remembers her not as a memory, but as a mirror, a reflection of what he could become if only he were brave enough to feel. And herein lies the paradox that keeps her living inside him. She never tried to keep him. She never chased, never clung, never begged. She let him go the moment he turned away, not out of pride, but out of principle. Her love is sacred. It cannot be bartered, cannot be bribed. She gives it freely, but only to those who honor it. She does not confuse availability with love. She knows that love without respect is spiritual starvation. To love her is to meet yourself in the fire, to feel your defenses crack, your projections crumble, your carefully crafted persona dissolve. And if a man cannot withstand that, if he cannot meet her as his equal, not in status but in soul, then she will walk away, not with bitterness, but with grace, because she has learned the most painful and powerful truth. Her worth is not negotiable. Jung taught that the path to wholeness requires integration of the unconscious. And in relationship, this means seeing beyond the projections we cast on others. The mysterious woman, in her quiet refusal to conform, becomes a disruption to those projections. She does not perform the role of savior, nor does she act out the fantasy of the wounded girl in need of fixing. She is whole, not perfect, but aware. And that awareness dismantles illusion. You may wonder, does she feel pain? Does she long? Does she ache? Of course. She is not immune to love's burn. But the difference is, she does not make her pain a prison. She lets it cleanse her, inform her, sharpen her discernment. She does not beg for closure, she becomes it. She does not wait to be chosen, she chooses herself. Again and again, in the face of loneliness, in the silence after goodbye, in the nights where memory presses like a bruise against her chest, she chooses her own soul over the illusion of connection. And yet, she loves. Deeply. Fiercely. Not often, but fully. And when she does, it's not with grasping hands or fearful eyes, it's with a quiet, molten intensity that melts the walls inside a man. She does not love from hunger. She loves from overflow. She is the calm center of the storm, and to be held in her affection is to be baptized in truth. But her love is not given lightly. She does not confuse chemistry with compatibility. She is not swayed by charm or appearances. Her nervous system has become a tuning fork for truth. And if your energy rings false, if your words are empty or your actions lack soul, she will feel it before you speak. She has suffered too long to tolerate the surface. Her sanctuary is truth, and only those who can breathe there will remain. Men often say she's intimidating. What they mean is she cannot be controlled. What they mean is she sees through them. What they mean is she makes them feel things they've spent their lives avoiding. But she is not here to intimidate. She is here to illuminate, to call forth the real, to bring forth the masculine not as dominance but as devotion. Devotion to truth, to integrity, to the sacred dance of polarities when both the masculine and feminine stand in wholeness. If he dares to stay, if he chooses to rise, she will not lead him nor follow him. She will walk beside him, not as his shadow, not as his prize, but as his equal, his mirror, his challenge, his peace, but only if he has shed the costume. Only if he has met his own wounds and no longer demands she carry them. Only if he has stopped asking women to mother his inner boy and has begun fathering his own fractured parts. Only then can he see her. Not as mystery to be solved, but as a force to be honored. And if he cannot, she disappears. Not in anger, not in drama, but like fog at sunrise, leaving him wondering if she was ever real at all, or just a dream that tried to wake him. And yet she was real. More real than anything he had touched in years, because she did not appeal to his fantasies, she disrupted them. She did not confirm his worth, she revealed where he had abandoned it. Her very presence was an invitation. Step into the truth, or step aside. There is no middle ground with a woman like her. You either rise into your full self, or you retreat into your illusions. There are men who will call her cold. Others will say she's too much. But what they really mean is she would not shrink. She did not dim her fire to make them feel more powerful. She did not twist herself into the version they could handle. She remained whole. And in that wholeness, she became unforgettable. She does not linger in his inbox. She does not scroll through his stories. She does not weaponize her silence, nor does she beg for scraps of attention. Instead, she becomes more of herself. She turns toward her art, her soul, her inner sanctum. And this return to self is what men don't understand. The more she loves, the deeper she returns inward, because her love is not about merging. It's about expansion. And if love does not expand her, she will not stay. Do you feel the difference? This is not rebellion. This is evolution. She is not at war with men. She is at peace with herself. And in that peace, she becomes a storm, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that clears, that washes away the false, that strips the surface bare and demands something true to remain. Men crave this woman without knowing why. They try to own her, define her, even fix her. But she does not need to be fixed. She has already repaired the parts of herself that bled for love. Now she simply waits, not in passivity, but in power. And only the man who can sit in her silence without needing to be reassured will find her unfolding. Only the man who does not flinch at her depth will witness her softness, because underneath the layers, past the mystery and the fire, past the stillness and the strength, she is tender. Not broken, not fragile, tender. And her tenderness is not a weakness. It is the final frontier, the place where warriors weep and kings kneel, not out of submission, but out of reverence, because her vulnerability is sacred. It is not given, it is earned. And the man who receives it understands this. He has not been chosen for how strong he is, but for how safe she feels in his presence. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And this woman, this embodiment of emotional mystery, is the awakening. She is not here to complete him. She is here to reflect the parts of him he left behind, his boyhood wounds, his masculine integrity, his hunger for soul, and that is why he will never forget her. Not because she fit into his life, but because she shattered the life he thought he wanted. Not because she told him who he was, but because she stood in who she was so fully, so unwaveringly, that he had no choice but to meet himself or lose her. This is the agony and the gift of knowing a woman like this. She will open you without touching you. She will undo you without raising her voice. She will change you, not because she tried, but because her very being is a portal to truth. She is the myth you thought was fiction until you tasted her reality, and now no illusion satisfies. If you are not ready for a woman like this, she will feel like a threat. If you are, she will feel like home, not a home built on dependency or denial, but on depth, on devotion, on truth. And once you've known that home, every other place will feel like exile, because the emotional mystery of such a woman isn't a wall to keep love out, it is a threshold, and only those who walk in truth may pass through. He may search for her in other women, hoping to find her voice in a different laugh, her presence in another's touch, but it never fits, not because they lack value, but because she carried something singular. She was not offering him love in the language he was used to, transactional, conditional, predictable. She was offering a mirror, a map, a moment of stillness so pure, so disarming, that it made the noise of his life unbearable. She was not just a woman, she was a threshold experience, and those are not repeated. They transform you or they pass you by. This is what men cannot name, but always feel. That pull toward the woman who doesn't reach, that fascination with the one who does not perform her emotions, but embodies them. Her mystery lies not in how much she reveals or withholds, but in the way she lives from a place beyond fear. She has walked through fire and made a home inside it. She does not react, she responds. She does not beg, she blesses. And when she leaves, it is not to punish, it is to preserve. She's not here to be understood. She's here to be felt, in the marrow, in the memory, in the moments when silence is louder than words. And when a man touches her soul, even for a brief instant, he is changed. Not because she gave him something, but because she awakened something already within him. A remembering, a return, a rising. But her path is not dependent on whether he rises or not. That is the final liberation. She loves without possession. She releases without resentment. Her grief is not bitter. It is sacred. It births new layers of self. And so each goodbye, each betrayal, each moment of being unseen becomes fuel for her transformation. She alchemizes heartbreak into radiance. She turns the ache into art, not for display, but for devotion to herself, to life, to what is real. If he comes back, he will find her changed, not colder, but clearer, not harder, but holier, because she does not stand still in her pain. She does not pause her life waiting for someone to choose her. She chooses herself again and again in rooms where she is misunderstood, in silences where her truth echoes unanswered. And each time she does, she becomes more. And the more she becomes, the less she tolerates anything less than truth. This is the final gift of her emotional mystery. It does not seduce, it summons. It calls forth the man who is no longer looking to be worshipped, but to be witnessed. The man who no longer needs to dominate, but to devote. The man who has done his shadow work, faced his father wounds, held his own trembling without demanding a woman heal it. The man who can look into her eyes and say, I see you, not as possession, but as prayer. And she will know when that man arrives, not because he's loud, but because he's present, because he meets her stillness with his own, because he does not flinch when she speaks her raw truth, because he does not mistake her mystery for a game or her strength for resistance. He honors it, he holds it, he lets it change him. Together, they do not merge, they mirror. They do not complete each other, they create a field where neither has to shrink, where love is not built on need, but on knowing. And in that knowing, the masculine and feminine no longer war with each other. They worship each other through truth, through presence, through the fierce devotion to inner wholeness. She no longer needs to chase. She no longer needs to explain. She no longer waits to be chosen. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.